This is one of those stories that seems like something out of a soap opera, but it really happened. A real betrayal that lasted an entire decade. 10 years of lies, hidden meetings, deleted messages, and phone calls at odd hours. 10 years, in which a woman lived with her husband without knowing that, on the other side of town, there was another woman. Another woman who not only accepted this role, but wanted it with all her might. A lover for 10 years. And that's not all. Because what makes this story even more absurd and revolting is that this lover today is the stepmother of the children of the betrayed wife. That's right. The woman who stole another woman's husband is now raising her children. If this has already given you a lump in your throat, take a deep breath, because the story goes much further. And maybe, deep down, you end up asking yourself, who was in control of everything? The deceived wife or the patient lover? Let's go back in time. The protagonist of this story is called Helena, a woman like so many others, married, dedicated mother, exemplary employee, the one who does everything for everyone and almost nothing for herself. For years, she believed she was in a solid marriage. Her husband, Marcos, was good-looking, hard-working, and at first glance, a loving father. They had 2 young children when everything began to fall apart. Little by little, in the silence between the lines. At first it was just a hunch, a strange discomfort in the chest. Do you know when your partner starts to get too distracted? When do kisses disappear and looks become dull? Helena noticed these signs, but refused to accept them. She said she was tired, busy, that it was just a phase. Every woman has been through this, but the truth, painful and cruel, is that her intuition was right. And the worst part is that she discovered this in the most subtle and at the same time devastating way, through her children's behavior. One day, the oldest, then 6 years old, commented at dinner. "Aunt Lucia also likes lasagna, right, Mom?" Helena froze. "Which aunt, son?" "Aunt Lucia, who Daddy takes us to sometimes." Her heart froze at that moment, because she never had heard of this woman before. From there, Helena began to connect the dots. The increasingly frequent work trips, the weekends with urgent meetings, the disappearances on his cell phone, the new perfume on his shirt, and little by little, the image of the perfect husband was shattered. She tried to confront him once, twice, 3 times, but Marcos always denied it. He always swore that she was imagining things. "You're getting paranoid, Helena. Do you want to destroy our marriage because of something stupid said by a child?" And she believed. She wanted to believe, because the fear of losing her family was greater than the courage to face the truth. Until the day came when everything changed. Helena, in a rare fit of anger and desperation, decided to follow her husband. It was a Wednesday night. He said he was going to work overtime at the office, but she knew. She felt. She followed him into a residential neighborhood. She saw his car pull up. She saw him ring the doorbell of a simple house. And she saw a woman open the door with a smile. Too intimate. That kind of smile that can't be hidden. And then Marcos came in. Not for 5 minutes. Not for a quick delivery or chat. He stayed for hours. Meanwhile, Helena waited in the car, her heart beating so loudly, it felt like screaming. That night she said nothing. She went home. She waited for him to come back. She pretended to be asleep. But inside her, a part of her had died, and the other part was just beginning to be reborn. The truth is that when a woman finds out she is being cheated on, she is never the same again. And depending on a Sanbi whom, this betrayal can turn into something even deeper, more complex, more cruel. Because the most absurd thing about this story is that the lover, Lucia, I already knew Helena. They weren't friends, no. But they had crossed paths a few times at events held at the company where Marcos worked. Lucia was his co-worker, and at the end-of-year lunches, she would greet Helena as if nothing had happened. A kiss on the cheek, a compliment. "You are so elegant," she once said. Hypocrisy has a name and a surname. The cruelest thing of all is that the betrayal didn't stop there. Because, even after being discovered, Lucia continued in Marcos's life. And not only that, she fought to take Helena's place, almost as if that position was a reward for the time spent waiting. And she succeeded, because today, Lucia is the stepmother of Helena's children, and that this forced coexistence with the woman who destroyed his family is what makes this story so indigestible, so painful, so impossible to ignore. This is the story of a woman who was betrayed for 10 years, and who now has to see her children being taken care of by someone who pretended to be just a co-worker. A story of long-term betrayal, hidden infidelity, forced family life, and a love that perhaps was never real. But what would you do in Helena's place? Would he be able to maintain his composure? Or would he explode? Tell us in the comments. Have you ever experienced something similar? Take advantage and subscribe to the channel to follow the full story that still has many twists and turns. This is just the first part. You won't believe what's yet to come. This is one of those stories that seems like something out of a soap opera, but it really happened. A real betrayal that spanned an entire decade. 10 years of lies, hidden meetings, deleted messages, and phone calls at odd hours. 10 years in which a woman lived with her husband without knowing that, on the other side of town, there was another woman. Another woman who not only accepted this role, but desired it with all her might. A lover for 10 years. And that's not all. Because what makes this story even more absurd and revolting is that this lover today is the stepmother of the children of the betrayed wife. That's right. The woman who stole another woman's husband is now raising her children. If this has already given you a lump in your throat, take a deep breath, because the story goes much further. And maybe, deep down, you end up asking yourself, who was really in control of everything? The deceived wife or the patient lover? Let's go back in time. The protagonist of this story is called Helena, a woman like so many others, married, dedicated mother, exemplary employee, the one who does everything for everyone and almost nothing for herself. For years, she believed she was in a solid marriage. Her husband Marcos was good-looking, hard-working, and at first glance, a loving father. They had 2 young children when everything began to fall apart. Little by little, in the silence between the lines. At first it was just a hunch, a strange discomfort in the chest. Do you know when your partner starts to get too distracted? When do kisses disappear and looks become dull? Helena noticed these signs but refused to accept them. She said she was tired, busy, that it was just a phase. Every woman has been through this, but the truth, painful and cruel, is that her intuition was right. And the worst part is that she discovered this in the most subtle and at the same time devastating way through her children's behavior. Then, the oldest, then 6 years old, commented at dinner. And Lucia also likes lasagna, right, Mom? Helena's froze. Which aunt, son? And Lucia, who Daddy takes us to sometimes. Her heart froze at that moment, because she never had heard of this woman before. From there, Helena began to connect the dots. The increasingly frequent work trips, the weekends with urgent meetings, the disappearances on his cell phone, the new perfume on his shirt, and little by little, the image of the perfect husband was shattered. She tried to confront him once, twice, 3 times. But Marcos always denied it. He always swore that she was imagining things. "You're getting paranoid, Helena. Do you want to destroy our marriage because of something stupid said by a child?" And she believed. She wanted to believe, because the fear of losing her family was greater than the courage to face the truth. Until the day came when everything changed. Helena, in a rare fit of anger and desperation, decided to follow her husband. It was a Wednesday night. He said he was going to work overtime at the office, but she knew. She felt. She followed him into a residential neighborhood. She saw his car pull up. She saw him ring the doorbell of a simple house. And she saw a woman open the door with a smile. Too intimate. That kind of smile that can't be hidden. And then Marcos came in. Not for 5 minutes. Not for a quick delivery or chat. He stayed for hours. Meanwhile, Helena waited in the car, her heart beating so loudly it felt like screaming. That night, she said nothing. She went home. She waited for him to come back. She pretended to be asleep. But inside her, a part of her had died, and the other part was just beginning to be reborn. The truth is that when a woman finds out she is being cheated on, she is never the same again. And depending on us and by whom, this betrayal can turn into something even deeper, more complex, more cruel, because the most absurd thing about this story is that the lover, Lucia, I already knew Helena. They weren't friends, no, but they had crossed paths a few times at events held at the company where Marcos worked. Lucia was his co-worker, and at the end of year lunches, she would greet Helena as if nothing had happened. A kiss on the cheek, a compliment. "You are so elegant," she once said. Hypocrisy has a name and a surname. The cruelest thing of all is that the betrayal didn't stop there. Because even after being discovered, Lucia continued in Marcos's life. And not only that, she fought to take Helena's place, almost as if that position was a reward for the time spent waiting. And she succeeded. Because today, Lucia is the stepmother of Helena's children, and that this forced coexistence with the woman who destroyed his family is what makes this story so indigestible, so painful, so impossible to ignore. This is the story of a woman who was betrayed for 10 years, and who now has to see her children being taken care of by someone who pretended to be just a co-worker. A story of long-term betrayal, hidden infidelity, forced family life, and a love that, perhaps, was never real. But what would you do in Helena's place? Would he be able to maintain his composure? Or would he explode? Tell us in the comments. Have you ever experienced something similar? Take advantage and subscribe to the channel to follow the full story that still has many twists and turns. This is just the first part. You won't believe what's yet to come.
That night when I saw Marcos entering her house with my own eyes, I felt as if someone had ripped my heart out with their hand. I was shaking all over inside the car, sweating cold, not knowing whether to cry or scream. But I didn't do either. I stood there, staring at the door of that house as if it were the entrance to hell. Because it was. It was the end of everything I believed in. It was the confirmation of what my body had been screaming for months, even years. He left almost 2 hours later. His shirt was wrinkled. He was smiling. Smiling. I wanted to open the car door and go after him. But something inside me stopped. I didn't want to give him that power. I didn't want to be that desperate woman crying in the street. I left without him seeing me. I drove home with my hands shaking and my head full of questions. The first thing I thought about was my children. How was I going to explain this to them? How was I going to keep them stable when everything I knew was falling apart? I got home and walked into their rooms slowly, as if I were stepping on ruins. I lay down next to them, smelled their hair, and cried softly, with my head buried in the pillow. The next day, Marcos acted as if nothing had happened. He kissed me on the forehead, asked if I wanted coffee, and left for work. His nerve was what destroyed me the most, and I sat there at the table, looking at his cup, feeling disgusted. Anger began to build inside me. I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to be fooled for even one more day. I needed proof. And more than that, I needed to understand who this woman was, who thought it was okay to be involved with a married man for so long. I spent weeks watching him. I saw deleted messages, calls at suspicious times. I saw that he had a second chip hidden in his car. Yes, he kept another number, an exclusive number to talk to her. That made me sick, and her name began to repeat itself in my children's mouths. Aunt Lucia took me to the park. Aunt Lucia bought ice cream. Aunt Lucia has an orange cat. They spoke of her as if she were an ordinary person, as if she were part of the family. And I listened to it all with a lump in my throat. Because she was there, entering my children's routine through the hands of their own father. I confronted Marcos. I showed him the messages, the chip, the calls. He looked at me for a few seconds in silence and said, "I was going to tell you, but you wouldn't understand." Wouldn't you understand? Is this what he had to say after destroying 10 years of my life? That was when he confessed to me that the affair had been going on almost as long as our marriage. He said that Lucia was a mistake that turned into love, that he tried to distance himself, but that he always came back, that she was patient, understanding, and that she accepted him the way he was. I didn't know whether to laugh or faint. I asked, "And me? What am I then? The clown who took care of the house while you had fun with her?" He said he didn't want to hurt me, that everything he did was to maintain family harmony. Harmony? He called it harmony? It was then that I understood that Marcos lived in a parallel world, a world where he was the good guy, the victim of a lackluster marriage, the man torn between two women. But I wasn't going to accept that role. I wasn't going to allow them to portray me as the bitter one, the cold one, the one who didn't see the signs. I told him to leave the house, that very day. And he did, without a fuss, without tears. He just grabbed a few things and left. But the most surreal part was yet to come, because in less than 2 weeks, he took the boys to spend a weekend with him, and he took them straight to Lucia's house. She was there, waiting, as if everything was normal, as if it were natural for the children of the betrayed woman to be welcomed into the lover's house. And the worst part is that the boys came back happy. They said she was nice, that she played with them, that she made pancakes. I felt like vomiting. I couldn't accept that this woman, the one who had been in my shadow for 10 years, was now part of my children's lives. Marcos began to include Lucia in everything. She would go pick up the boys with him, show up at school events, and send messages to the family group, as if she were just another stepmother. But she wasn't. She was the living portrait of betrayal, disloyalty, and wasted time. And the worst part? I couldn't do anything, because legally, she wasn't a criminal. She was just their father's new partner, and if the boys were fine, happy, playing, I couldn't stop it. But inside me, everything was at war. I began to feel invisible. I began to question my own importance. How could I not see it? How could I let this happen? And even after everything, I felt guilty. I wondered if I had been enough, if I had given too much of myself, if I had stopped being a woman and just a mother. But little by little, between tears and silence, I began to understand. The mistake was never mine, and that's why I'm here, telling this story. So that no woman thinks that the mistake is hers, so that no woman thinks she deserves to live in the leftovers. This story isn't over yet, because Lucia, my lover of 10 years, did much more than take my place. She had plans. She wanted the family complete, and what she did next was even worse than anything I've ever told you. But before I continue, tell me, would you have been able to bear seeing your children calling their lover aunt? Would you have kept quiet? Comment below. I need to know if I've gone crazy, or if this pain I felt is something you would also understand. And please, if this story touched you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because I need your strength to continue. It was on my youngest son's 5th birthday that everything got out of control. I organized a simple party in the building's hall. Colorful balloons, chocolate fudge, hot dogs, those things we try to do to maintain normality in the midst of chaos. I invited the family, some mothers from school, and of course Marcos. After all, he was still the father. He was still part of our children's lives. But he didn't come alone. He appeared holding hands with her, Lucia. He came in smiling, as if he were a distant relative who arrived late and wanted to pretend to be close. And the worst part, the boys ran to hug them both. I froze. Inside, I broke down. But on the outside, I maintained my composure, not out of pride, but because I knew that any reaction I made at that moment would be used against me. Lucia greeted a few people, smiled at the school mothers, helped carry the presents. She acted as if she were the child's godmother, but I knew what she was, and what she would never be. At one point, I went to the kitchen to get more soda. When I came back, I found the two of them, Marcos and Lucia, serving the cake, together, as if they were the host couple. My stomach turned. After the party, a mother called me aside and asked, "Are you okay with this situation? Because it's weird, right?" It was there that I realized that I was being judged for something I didn't even choose, as if my dignity had to be molded to everyone's convenience. The following weeks were a sequence of triggers. The boys started coming back with phrases like, "Lucia knows how to make noodles that are tastier than yours." "Lucia has the same perfume as my teacher." Lucia said that when we grow up, she'll take us to Disney. And me, I was just the mother, the annoying one, the one who scolded, the one who did homework, the one who said no. I started to fade away. I was leaving myself aside, living on autopilot. Because no matter how much I tried to keep my head up, the truth is that Marcos destroyed not only the marriage, but the image my children had of me. He never told them the truth. He never said he cheated. He never said that Aunt Lucia was the woman he had been cheating on me with for years. To them, she was just Daddy's new girlfriend. And that killed me inside. I started therapy. I went looking for support because I no longer knew who I was. I asked myself every day, how can a woman live with a married man for 10 years and still think it's fair to occupy the role of stepmother? The answer never came. Until one day the psychologist told me, "Helena, there are women who live in the shadow of others. The problem is not you. It's her and him." It gave me strength. That's when I decided to face Lucia. I waited. One day when Marcos came to drop off the boys. She was in the car, of course. She got out, came to hug the boys, and gave me that friendly, fake, rehearsed smile. I took a deep breath and said, Do you feel comfortable being called aunt by the children of the woman you cheated on for 10 years? She froze. The smile fell. I don't want any trouble, Helena, she said. Confusion? You are confusion, I replied. She tried to say that the boys adored her, that she always treated them with affection, that she never wanted to steal anyone's place. I laughed. You already stole, but not the place. You stole my time, my trust, my history. She swallowed hard. If you were ashamed, you wouldn't even show up here. She didn't answer. She just got into the car. Marcos texted me later saying that I had overreacted, that I should think about the children, that Lucia was crying. Crying? I cried. For years. She had a decade of hidden love, and now she was crying because she heard the truth. That's when I decided to set boundaries. I asked that the boys' visits be made far from my door, that they would pick up and drop off the children at school, that Lucia would respect my space. But Marcos didn't take it well. He said I was creating barriers, that this confused the boys. I went to the lawyer. I wanted to formalize everything. He was surprised. He said that it is usually the father who wants to limit visits, not the mother. But I didn't want to separate father and children. I wanted to separate myself from the pain. And then came the most absurd thing. Marco sent me a message a few days later. Lucia wants to talk to you. Just the two of you. She said it's important. I thought it was some kind of belated apology, a way to ease my conscience. I accepted. We arranged to meet at a discreet cafe. She arrived early. She was nervous. I know I was wrong, but I wanted to ask you something, she began. I remained silent. I wanted to know if you would allow that. If one day the boys wanted to call me stepmother, that would be a problem. I almost dropped the cup. Stepmother? She wanted not only my husband, she wanted my title. Lucia, you were my lover for 10 years. Now you want to be my children's official stepmother? Have you no shame? She started crying. She said she loved the boys, that she wanted to be a real part of their lives, that she wanted to be a positive role model. I got up from the table. Do you want to be a role model? Start by learning to respect the space of the woman you destroyed. And I left. But it haunted me for days. Because as much as I hated it, the truth was that my children already saw a figure in her. The title didn't matter. They already had it on their Sundays, at your lunches, in school stories. I cried for weeks. Until one day my oldest son asked me, Mommy, why don't you like Lucia? I froze. How do you explain to a child that that woman was the shadow that sucked me dry for years? How can I tell him that his stepmother was my silent pain? That night I slept hugging them both, and I swore to myself, they will not grow up hating each other, not Lucia, not their father. But they won't grow up without knowing the truth either. And the truth is what I'll tell them, when they're ready. But before that, I need to heal. And if you've made it this far, tell me one thing. Do you believe that a lover can become a good stepmother? Or is this just an illusion that masks guilt? Leave your comment. Help me understand what so many women don't have the courage to say. And if this story touched you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because this is more than just a story. It is the cry of someone who was silenced for 10 years. Time passed, and when the pain didn't go away with it, I understood that it was here to stay. At least for a longer time than I thought I could bear. I began to live in two worlds. The automatic one, where I worked, took care of the children, paid bills, smiled politely at neighbors, and the other, internal, where I relived dialogues, scenes, words that would never come back, but that still echoed inside me. What hurt me the most, and it hurt me like a slow blade, was realizing that Marcos never had the courage to admit the truth. He didn't tell anyone. He never told, not even his children, not even his family, that the woman he was now walking with through the school hallways was the same one he slept with while I made lunch for the boys. He made everything seem natural, as if he and Lucia had met later, as if that relationship had been born pure, without wounds. But the truth is that he destroyed what we had with silence and cowardice. And even worse was seeing how the boys began to accept this as normal. We're going to sleep at Daddy's house tonight. Lucia is going to make pancakes. She bought us a new game. She's nice, Mom, really. You should talk to her. Each sentence was a little fire in my chest, but I smiled. I pretended it was okay, because it wasn't their fault. But every time they spoke fondly of her, I felt diminished, replaced, erased. Until one day, something happened that broke me down. We were in the car, heading to the movies. It was just our day. I had set aside money and chosen the movie they wanted. I wanted to reconnect, to be a present, fun, easygoing mother. Halfway there, the youngest said, "Can we invite Lucia next time? She loves this movie too." The oldest completed, "Yeah. And she lets us buy 2 sweets, not just one." I didn't answer. My eyes filled, but I turned my face away. I took a deep breath. I smiled and said, "Today is just for Mom, okay? Our day." But what I really wanted to do was stop the car and scream. Ask, why did she become the reference for affection? Why did I become just the rule, the limit, the tiredness? The night ended with them sleeping on the couch, cuddled in blankets, after lots of popcorn. I sat on the living room floor, in the dark, and cried silently. Again. That's when I received a message from Marcos. "Lucia is worried. She thought the boys were acting a little strange today. Did something happen?" I didn't answer. What happened is that she took my place and still thinks she has the right to measure me. The following month, the wedding invitation came. Yes. They were going to get married. And of course, they involved the boys in everything. They tried on clothes, took pictures, made them both carry rings. They sent souvenirs. I found out from third parties, from mutual friends. He didn't even have the courage to tell me that. And as if that wasn't enough, the boys came back excited. "We're going to Dad's wedding. Lucia bought us a suit." The part of me that was still waiting for an apology died there. Marcos married the woman who destroyed me, using our children as table decorations, and he still thought I should accept this with maturity. When they came back from the wedding weekend, the youngest brought me a gift, a handmade soap with a bow and a tag that says, "For Mom, Helena, with love, from Lucia." I held on. I looked at that package as if it were a trap, a symbol of the complete inversion of reality. I didn't accept it. I didn't comment. I put it in the back of a drawer. It didn't deserve to be in the trash, but it also didn't deserve a place on my skin. I started writing, daily. It was like a war diary. I needed to dump, organize, detox. I joined a group of women who had been through long-term relationships with betrayal. Some of them had very similar stories. Others were even more cruel. I felt welcome there, and it was during one of these exchanges that I heard a phrase that stuck with me. A lover who becomes a stepmother is like smoke that disguises itself as air. You breathe, but it still suffocates you. That was it. She was everywhere. In the boys' clothes, in the drawings they brought, in the innocent comments. Not that I wanted to erase the bond. I just wanted the right to not be forced to smile through the pain. I wanted someone, anyone, to recognize the violence of having to share the upbringing of your children with the woman who shared your husband's bed, while you thought you were in a marriage. But nobody talked about it. until Mother's Day arrived. At school, the kids made little cards. My oldest son gave me his. It was beautiful, colorful. It said, "Mommy, I love you as much as the sky." I cried right away, but the youngest took a while. He came only at the end of the night with a simpler note, a half-faded drawing, and said, "I made this one for you, but I made another one too, for Lucia, because she also takes care of us, right?" I froze. I wanted to scream, to tear that paper. But I bent down and said, "Son, you can love those who take care of you, but never forget those who carried you when no one else could." He nodded, a little confused. And there, I understood. This battle wasn't about competing for love. It was about surviving the injustice of being forgotten. The following months were quieter. Marcos and Lucia continued to post happy photos, travels, and a perfect life on social media, while I kept trying to remember that my pain was valid, even if it was ignored. It was one night while I was tidying the boys' closet that I found an old notebook. In it, my oldest son had written, "Today I dreamed that Mom and Dad were living together again. But Lucia was crying, and I was sad because I didn't know who I liked more." I closed the notebook carefully and cried silently once more. The story I lived was never just mine. It passed through my children. It marked their bodies with memories that they did not understand, but that they will carry with them. And if today, Lucia is the stepmother, that doesn't erase what she was before that. You can dress it up as affection. You can try to look like love. But I know what she was. Every time the boys visited their father's house, it was as if I had to relearn how to breathe. Not because I was afraid of losing them, but because of the constant feeling that I was already being erased from their story. Lucia knew how to take up space. He didn't shout, he didn't demand, but he was present in the details. In the clothes that came back washed with the smell of expensive fabric softener, in the millimetrically aligned haircuts, in the lunchboxes that sometimes came more organized than mine, and I found myself trying to compete for a role that was already mine. But that seemed to be being rewritten from the top. One night, while I was preparing dinner, my youngest son came running from the living room with his cell phone in his hand, laughing. "Look, Mommy, Lucia posted us making pancakes, and Daddy put a funny song in the video." I pretended to smile, but the truth, it ate away at me. And it wasn't envy, it wasn't jealousy. It was humiliation. For years, I cared for her, washed her, fed her, rocked her in my arms with a fever, without a camera, without applause, without Instagram filters. But suddenly, all it took was a few videos and catchphrases for her to become the cool one, the fun one, the one who makes pancakes, a weekend mom with feed editing. And then came the birthdays. At school, they always asked for a simple party. Balloons, cake, a few friends. I did everything myself. I decorated, filled balloons, put together little bags. But that year, Marcos decided to do something special. "I want to have a little party at home, just for my closest friends. Lucia and I are going to organize everything." I swallowed hard. I said okay, even though I wanted to scream. When the boys returned, they brought personalized souvenirs, photos with a themed panel, and a retrospective video. The next day, the teacher sent a note. "Helena, I just wanted to say that the boys were very happy about the party. They were beaming. I'm glad they're being well looked after on both sides." From both sides, that phrase kept echoing inside me, as if we were all in a game of balance, as if Lucia and I were poles of the same field, and the boys were just orbiting between one and the other. But we were not the same. She was a mistress for 10 years. She helped destroy a home. And now she was seen as part of it. I started to feel exhausted, as if life was too much of a chore. I would go to work but forget what I had done. I would go to the grocery store and come back without half of what I needed. I would sleep, but wake up more tired. Until one night, the oldest called me to talk. "Mom, why do you get sad when we talk about Lucia?" I remained silent. The lump in my throat came immediately. "She's nice, Mom. She never talks bad about you, I swear. And she said she understands that you're our mother. You always will be. But why don't you like her?" I took a deep breath, and I spoke the truth, because she was with Daddy while he was still married to me. And that hurt me a lot, son. She was part of a choice that destroyed what we had. It's not easy to look at her and pretend nothing happened. He lowered his eyes, and after a while he said, "But we like both of them. We didn't want you to be sad." And then I understood. I didn't need my children to hate Lucia. I just needed them to know the truth, and not let anyone else tell it. A few weeks later, I got a message from her. "Lucia, first time in years. Hi, Helena. I know this might be weird, but I wanted to know if we could talk, mother to mother, without Marcos." I stared at the screen for minutes. I didn't know if it was a trap, a provocation, or a real attempt at I don't know what. "Answer. Speak here. What do you want?" She typed. She stopped. She typed again, until she got, "I want to apologize. I really do. I know there's no way to erase what happened, but I wanted us to try to live together in peace. For the boys, and for you too. I admired you a lot before all this, and I still do." Admiration? My heart was pounding. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream, but I didn't answer. I left it in a vacuum, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I was still trying to put back together the pieces she herself had helped break. At the school's end-of-year meeting, we were all in the same room, me, Marcos, and her. Lucia sat on the other side. She looked at me. She tried to smile. I looked away. As we left, the boys ran among us, excited. They made a point of pulling us by the arms. "Take a picture with us, come on, everyone together." I froze. Marcos laughed, trying to sound natural. Lucia hesitated. I just smiled slightly. I bent down, hugged them both, and said, "Let's take it off just with Mom now. Then you can take it off with Dad and Lucia, okay?" They accepted. And in that moment, I knew I still had my place. It doesn't matter how many photos they post. It doesn't matter how many videos with background music there are. I was there when no one else was. And that will never change. Sometime later, the boys were asleep, and I rummaged through the closet looking for a document. I found my oldest son's old notebook. I leafed through it slowly, and in the middle of the pages, a note I had never seen before. "Mommy, you are the strongest woman I know. When I grow up, I want to marry someone like you. Even though you are sad sometimes, I love you every day." I closed my eyes. I held on tight. I cried again. But for the first time in a long time, it wasn't from pain. It was recognition. Life may have ripped away everything that felt right. It may have turned me inside out. It may have forced me to watch my children call another woman special. But she will never be able to take away what I built with them. Not the story we lived. Not the love that exists here, even when no one sees it. After that parent-teacher meeting, where the boys asked for a photo of everyone together, something in me began to settle. Not out of conformity, but out of exhaustion. I was tired of fighting for a place that was already mine. I no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. They knew who I was. But knowing this didn't stop the discomfort from continuing to poke at him silently. A few days later, my youngest son arrived excited from his father's weekend. "Mom," Lucia said, "she's going to make a little vegetable garden with us. She's going to plant chives, tomatoes, lettuce, all in a little corner of the balcony." I smiled with the corner of my mouth, but my stomach turned. Little vegetable garden. I remembered ours. In the backyard, years ago, the two little ones helped to dig the little holes with their hands, threw the seeds in as if they were precious stones, and then wet them so much that they turned into mud. One of the only good memories I have with Marco still living here. Now, they were recreating it. With her. I went to my room after they were asleep and collapsed. Again. In silence. In the dark. With my hand over my mouth. As always. Just so. No one could hear. Not even me. The problem with being a mother is that we learn to suffer without an audience. And we still smile the next day, as if nothing had broken inside. One day I received an unexpected call. It was Marcos's mother. The same one who always kept her distance, but never stopped treating me with a certain formal politeness. "Helena, my dear, I know it's strange for me to call you, but I wanted to ask you something. Very personal." I froze. I had no idea what was coming next. The boy's birthday is coming up, and Marcos wanted to celebrate with just the closest ones. I know it seems absurd, but he thinks it would be good for you all to be together. For the first time. I froze. What do you mean, all together? You, the boys, him, Lucia, and me, of course. Just one afternoon, Helena. No, formalities. Just to show that you can coexist without war. I laughed. A dry, incredulous laugh. Donna Vera, coexisting is one thing. Pretending nothing happened is another. She took a deep breath. She could feel her embarrassment even over the phone. I understand, more than you know, but the boys are growing up, and they'll remember everything. Every gesture, every fight avoided, every awkward atmosphere disguised. I just thought, if maybe you could consider it. I hung up without replying. I had that idea hammering in my head for days. Coexist. That word provoked me. As if we were a quilt sewn with tension threads, and the stitches needed to hold together even if the weaves were incompatible. I decided I wouldn't go, but on their birthday my children begged with their eyes. "Go, Mom. Please. We really wanted you to see what we did." I sighed. I got ready slowly. I grabbed the key, and I left. When I arrived, the scene was so surreal that I almost went back home. Balloons hung with gold ribbon, a themed cake featuring their two favorite heroes, a table with personalized sweets with the boys' initials. Lucia was wearing a light blue dress, simple but carefully chosen. Marcos saw me first. He came with that usual smile, half embarrassed, half fake. "Helena, I'm glad you came." I nodded, but didn't say anything. She came right behind. "Hi, Helena. I'm glad you came. Really." I gave a half smile, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. During the party, I stood in a corner, eating slowly, observing. The boys were running, laughing, showing off their toys, showing off the drawings stuck on the wall. And she was in the center of the scene, receiving everyone's praise, as if she had always belonged there. Marcos tried to include me. He would bring me a soda and ask if I wanted anything else. I would thank him and avoid making things too long, until his mother, Donna Vera, approached. "You are a very strong woman, Helena. I never told you, but I regret every day not having taken your side back then." I looked at her in surprise. It was the first time anyone in his family had admitted any guilt. At that time, Marcos told me that the marriage was already dead, that you and he didn't talk, that it was just because of the children, and I preferred to believe him. Because it was easier than facing the truth, that he was cheating on an incredible woman, and that I, as his mother, allowed it. My throat closed up. The words wouldn't come out. She held my hand, her eyes filled with tears. You didn't deserve to go through what you went through, but you raised these boys with dignity, and that's why they love you so pure, even with everything that happened. I felt something dissolve inside me, and for a moment, I just wanted to disappear from there. But I stayed. For my children. For my story. When I got home that night, I sat on my bed and looked at the photos from the day. The boys had taken several, and in all of them there was a smiling Lucia in the background. I was in some too. Stiff, uncomfortable, but present. And that was what mattered. They would know, one day, everything that happened. And when they did, they would not be able to accuse me of having abandoned, of having avoided, of having run away. I've been there, even when it hurt. Even when her presence felt like an offense to my existence. Months later, my oldest son called me to talk. Mom, can I tell you something without you getting mad? Sure, son. Speak up. Lucia. She said that she stayed with Daddy for a long time while he was still with you. She said she regrets it, but that Daddy said that you didn't like him anymore, that you were only together because of us. I swallowed hard. And you believe that? He looked at me for long seconds. Then he said, No, because I remember. I remember you fighting for him to stay home. I remember you crying in the bathroom, and I remember when you said he had cheated on you. I just didn't know it was with her. I lowered my eyes. Tears fell without me noticing. I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted you to know that. We know, and we'll never forget everything you did. I hugged him as if time had frozen. In that hug, something in me healed. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough for me to breathe without pain. Life went on. Marcos and Lucia officially got married. They bought a new house. They even had a small ceremony. The boys were page boys. And even though it hurt, I allowed it. Because I'm not the one who's going to ruin what they're experiencing. I'm not going to be the bitter mother who forbids, who sabotages, who plants resentment. But I won't forget either. I will never forget that she took my place. Not because I left, but because they took me away. And yet, I'm still here. Whole, even if in glued pieces. Strong, even after so many falls. Present, even if invisible in the photos. Because being a mother doesn't need a stage. It needs consistency. And that, I have plenty of that. The months went by, and the routine took on a new look. The boys alternated weekends between my house and Marcos and Lucia's, and with each transition, I felt something different. A kind of emptiness, as if, little by little, they were learning to live without me around. It wasn't their fault. Children learn what we show them, and I always showed them freedom, trust, and unconditional love. But it was strange, seeing their eyes light up when they told me about the trip to the park, the movie with giant popcorn, the night Lucia let them sleep in the living room watching cartoons. Pretending it didn't hurt me was harder than admitting it. They were growing up, and with growth came comparison. One random Wednesday, I got a call from the school. Helena, good afternoon. This is Professor Claudia. Everything is fine, but Caio had a little argument with a classmate and ended up mentioning something delicate. My heart sank. Delicate how? He said, in no uncertain terms, that his father cheated on his mother with his current wife, and that's why he doesn't like going to his father's house. He said that everything there seems like a lie, and that, at least at his mother's house, he can be himself. I remained silent. The teacher continued, "I'm not here to judge anything. I just thought it was important to share. This could be a sign that he's starting to process certain emotions more rationally. Maybe it's a good idea to talk to him. Carefully." I thanked him and hung up. I took a deep breath. Kaio was always more introspective, observer, more mine than the world's. That messed with me. And it made me rethink several conversations, several omissions. That night I lay down next to him, without saying anything. I just rested my arm on his. "Mother." "Hi, son." "Are you sad with me?" "Of course not. Why?" "Because I talked about our family. Things at school. I should have kept quiet, right?" "Son, you have every right to feel what you feel. To talk about it. The only thing I want is for you to know that what your father did, what Lucia represents, none of that changes how much I love you. And it never changes who you are. Okay?" He turned to me. "But it does change, Mom, because I don't know if it's right to like her anymore." I closed my eyes for a moment. "Kaio, liking someone who treats you well will never be wrong. Even if she made bad choices in the past, what she did to me has nothing to do with the way she takes care of you. Understand?" He nodded slowly. "But I don't want to forget what she did to you." I hugged him, tight, as if my hug could cradle his pain and dissolve it inside me. "You don't have to forget. You just have to live. With truth. Without guilt." A few days later, Lucia called me. "Helena, do you have time to talk? I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but it's important." I was silent for a few seconds. "He can talk." She took a deep breath. Her voice sounded shaky. I noticed that Kaio is more distant, cold. He doesn't look me in the eyes anymore. He avoids me when I get close. And I understand. I swear I understand, but it hurts, because it hurts. I like him. Really. And I never wanted to take him away from you. Neither did Pedro. I never wanted to take his place. I just wanted them to feel safe with me too. I listened, in silence. She continued, "I know I was selfish, cruel, cowardly. I stole from you what you protected the most. And I'm not asking for forgiveness, because I don't even know if I deserve it. I just wanted for you to know that if he ever wants to talk to me, I'm here." I hung up with a strange heart. Part of me wanted to scream that she would never understand. She would never know what it was like to wake up alone, hearing her children ask, "Where's Daddy?" While I smiled and said, "He's working," knowing he was in her arms. But another part was tired of feeling hate. Hate weighs heavy. It ages the soul. And what I needed now was lightness. One afternoon, Pedro came to show me a drawing. It was a house with 3 hearts inside. "This is you, Kaio, and I, in our house." I smiled, but he pointed further, to the side. "And here is Daddy's house, with him and Lucia. Only 2 hearts, because we only go there once in a while." "I see. And which of these houses do you like best?" He thought for a few seconds. "I like both. But in this one," he pointed to ours, "I sleep better, because you make the blanket warm with the dryer before covering us." I smiled, crying inside. That was it. In the end, it's these details that build love. The warm blanket, the freshly squeezed natural juice, the kiss on the forehead before bed, the whispered good morning early in the morning, The things that she, no matter how hard she tries, will never be able to truly copy. Because it's not about gestures, but of history. A few weeks later, Kaio asked to sleep over at his father's house for the weekend. He said he wanted to understand a few things. I didn't ask, I just let him go. On the way back, he was quieter, but on Sunday night, he called me into the room. "Mom," I spoke to Lucia, absent. I asked her if she regrets it, and she cried. She said yes, every day. I kept quiet, waiting for him to continue. Then I said that I also regretted calling her a father thief. I looked at him, surprised. "Did you call her that?" "Yeah, when I was about 7. Once, when we were playing and Daddy went out to take a phone call, I spoke very quietly. She turned pale, but she never told anyone." I swallowed my emotion. And how was it talking to her now? He shrugged. It was strange, but, well, I understood that she suffers too, even after doing what she did. "And you? Are you still angry?" "Less. I still find it all very confusing. But I'm trying to grow, just like you taught me." I hugged him with all my strength. There I realized my sons were becoming men with conscience, and that, in the end, was all I needed. Nowadays, my relationship with Lucia is almost diplomatic. We exchange messages about the boys, share responsibilities, and have school meetings together. We're not friends, and we probably never will be. But there is a silent respect, a mutual recognition that we exist and coexist within the same universe, that of boys. And Marcos? Well, he's still Marcos. Disguised smile, soft speech, good father attitude. He never took responsibility for anything. He didn't even ask for forgiveness. Maybe because I think time has already done that for him. But I know, and he knows that I know. Sometimes I catch myself looking back, mentally reliving every choice, every humiliation, every tear swallowed in silence. And I ask myself, was it worth being so strong? The answer comes slowly. Yes, because even though I was exhausted, even though I was hurt, even though I lost things that I will never get back, I gained something greater. I gained 2 upright children who grew up with truth, with affection, with presence. And they will know in the future that being strong does not mean never falling. It's getting up every day, even when your soul just wants to hide. In the years that followed that conversation with Kaio, a lot has changed, but everything has happened slowly, without fanfare, without any major revolutions. Real life is like that. Pain doesn't have an exact day to end, and overcoming it doesn't come with fanfare. It seeps through the cracks in our routine until we realize that, for the first time in a long time, the memory no longer hurts. The relationship between the boys and Lucia became more relaxed, and that, as strange as it may seem to say, brought me relief. Because happy children are a priority, even when that means swallowing a pride that seemed impossible to swallow. She never tried to be the mother, and I think she realized over time that the best thing she could do was just be a good woman in their lives, stable, kind, and there for me when I couldn't be. I know she fails. I know she sometimes exaggerates in the photos with them on social media, perhaps trying to prove something to someone, or even to herself. But I let her. I no longer play this invisible game of showing who is the best mother, who loves more, who takes better care. Those who truly love don't need to show it. One Saturday, well after the wounds had begun to heal, Kaio came back from there feeling different. Sitting in the back seat, with his eyes downcast, he was silent, for a while. Only when we parked in the garage did he say, "Mom, Can I ask you something that I don't know if you'll want to answer? I nodded. He always had that delicacy, asking permission to touch on difficult subjects. Do you think Daddy really loves Lucia? Like, true love? I stared straight ahead, feeling the weight of answering something that perhaps he was, trying to understand within himself as well. I think that your father loves as best he can, and Lucia represents a part of him that he perhaps never knew how to live with me. Sometimes people love each other for reasons we don't understand, or they get used to it, and they call it love. He bit his lip. And you? Do you still love him? I closed my eyes for a second. I have loved a lot. Much more than I should have. But today I love myself more than I ever have in the past. He smiled, and that was enough. I had other relationships after the end with Marcos. Few. Silent. And I confess, I almost always sabotaged myself. Sometimes, unintentionally. Other times, with full awareness. It's as if, for a long time, I was afraid of giving myself away again, of letting my guard down, of becoming a target. Because when you're betrayed by the person you trusted most, you learn to sleep with an invisible shield, and wake up every day with it pressed against your chest. But life taught me that you can't live your entire life in fear. There was a man, Daniel, who appeared in my life when I wasn't looking for anyone else. We met in a bookstore. Can you believe it? It was spontaneous, natural, as if for the first time, there was no need to disguise anything. He never tried to compete with my story. He never wanted to take up too much space. He just looked at me with respect and listened to me as if every word I said had value. It was with him that I learned that love doesn't have to hurt to be true. Today, he is present, discreet. He doesn't try to be my children's father, but he is their friend. And for the first time, I feel that I can experience something that was not born of lack, nor of need, nor of the urgency to be loved. Born from balance. One time, Lucia sent me a message in the middle of the night. It was rare. I even thought it was some problem with the boys, but it wasn't. It was just her. Unarmed. Writing perhaps at the only time she had the courage to be honest without expecting a response. Helena, I know this message should never have existed, but today I was watching Pedro sleeping on the couch after a movie, and I found myself thinking about how much he has the same way of laughing as you. How much, even without wanting to, I learned from you. Observing from a distance. I know that I will never erase what I did, and that I have no right to expect anything from you. But I wanted you to know that I admire your strength. And if today I try to be a better woman, it's because I saw how to move forward after being destroyed. Thank you. Even if you never forgive me. I read that message about 5 times, and then I deleted it. Not because it pissed me off, but because I felt that, at that moment, it wasn't about her. It was about me. About knowing that I no longer needed to carry any weight that wasn't mine. A few years have passed. The boys have grown up. Caio now has a girlfriend. Pedro spends more time on his video game than on my lap, but he still sits next to me when he sees that I'm quieter than usual. On any given Sunday, the 4 of us, me, Daniel, Caio, and Pedro, were eating cheese bread on the porch. The music was soft. The sky was cloudy. It was Caio who said, "Mom, did you know that when I was little, I thought you never cried?" Smile. Serious? Yeah, you were always so strong. Even when we hurt you by accident. Even when, Dad, well, you know, even back then. I looked at him. I was crying, son. I was just waiting for you to fall asleep so I could do that. I think that's why I trust you so much today. And Pedro, out of nowhere, said, "But now you cry less, right? Like, Are you happier? I took a deep breath. I took a sip of coffee, and I said, now I cry differently. Sometimes out of longing, sometimes out of pride, but always for real. This story I told you doesn't have a happy fairy tale ending. There is no theatrical reconciliation, nor villains who become heroes. There is real pain, a mother's love, anger that turned into silence, forgiveness that was not verbal, but was lived. And there is a woman who survived a sick love, a prolonged betrayal, a accompanied loneliness, and who chose every day not to let that define who she was. Today, I look in the mirror and see new wrinkles, yes, but I also see a sparkle in my eyes that wasn't there before, because now I belong to myself. And this is the most beautiful new beginning I could have.